Welcome back to Whitt Acres. Today we're going on the first official garden tour of the 2024 growing season. If you're new here, I'm Cody and welcome to my backyard. And as always, we're gonna have Echo Pup following along with us. I'm in zone 6A here in Pennsylvania, and we have a beautiful sunny day here, especially for the middle of March. I'm gonna try and do full garden tours every month this year during the growing season, and I'm gonna try and do it in the middle of the month to give the full effect of the growth that month. I think it's gonna be better to do it in the middle rather than the beginning, so you actually get the idea of what was growing that month. And right now we're starting to get our first blooms. Huh, Pop? The geyser. I also have a geyser on the pond, but we'll get down there. The first garden bed we're gonna start with is right here off the patio and next to the burner pad. We have our wood burner here for the house. That's why we call that area the burner pad. But the specimen plant in the middle here is a 9-bark. And then we have a few different herbaceous perennials that come up through the bottom here. I do typically plant annual poppies through this bed. That's why I call it the poppy bed. Hopefully we have some that are gonna reseed this year. We have a few different styles of daffodils on the property, and this one's a really nice frilly one with the outside 5 petals. It's a nice bright yellow and fragrant. It goes well with the purple periwinkle vine, which is just starting to bloom, and we have some hyacinths coming up as well. This one looks to be a little peachy color, which is going to be nice with those daffodils whenever they start blooming. Coming into the bottom bed, we have some hyacinths blooming along the rock wall. We have a nice royal purple and some burgundy pink. These could be doing better. I only got them in a couple years ago, and last year whenever they came up, a rabbit came in and completely ate them all. So now with the little garden barrier on it, hopefully the rabbit doesn't get to them this year. Huh, Pop? Now it's the beginning of the season, and it's up to me to get all the gardens ready for the growing season, so it takes a little bit of time. If you've been watching the videos, you know we started with some little beds like this one. We also dressed up the pots on the steps here. We have some daffodils coming up in the middle of each of these pots, and then in the middle of these 2 pots we have wild bell hyacinths, so hopefully those will bloom this year. I don't know what happened up here, nothing's coming back. The rose bed needs a complete remodel, but along the edge here next to the little patio pond, which still does have 2 of the shabunkins in there, they survived in that pond all winter long, even with thick ice buildup. I left the pump going on the waterfall the whole time. You can see that filter sock all backed up on there, but the water's still flowing, keeping those fish alive. And we have some daffodils right next to it, almost ready to bloom. And of course the purple hyacinths, which have a beautiful fragrance to them. I already tried to do a remodel on this rose bed, which we're gonna have to do again because I want to take everything out, all the soil and everything, and then fill it back in and replant these roses with some nice soil. I always struggle with the roses, and my mom wants a nice rose garden here next to the patio, so I'm gonna try this year again and see if we can make that happen. Behind the beach here we have another bed that we already got mulched. This is the ramp bed. It has some irises going along the back side there, a little group of lilies, and then we have a mix of a spiderwort plant with a hosta right here coming up. It kind of died back a little bit last year, so I want to see how it responds. And in the back corner here I did get a penstemon to come back, so I'm hoping that blooms this year too. I planted a penstemon in there originally, a whole plant from a nursery. The penstemon grew well for the first year, but whenever it died back it didn't come back. However, it did reseed pretty well, so I found a volunteer that it dropped and I replanted it in this corner, and that's what's coming up now, and it's growing. So I'm hoping that blooms. We even have a volunteer down here in the concrete crack, and even a few more over here on these cracks here. You can tell by the purple leaves. So it wants to grow here. I just need to get it in the right spot. And then the bed behind the bench also got a mulch over. This is full of gladiola bulbs, and then I'm going to be planting some vines to go up the trellises here on the patio wall. There's a lot to do, and a lot's going to change as it warms up here, so I like bringing you along for the very beginning and then through the whole growing season as well. Now down here by the pond I didn't get a lot of work in yet. I have the new garden bed on the outside there that I still have to get completely weeded out and edged out. I haven't done much with these garden beds yet because I'm still cleaning out the pond, and as I clean out the pond I put all the algae up into the bed. You can see a big clump there, and that's just going to keep adding good fertilization to the soil. And then hopefully this year I can get the pond all filled up with plants to where we won't have as much algae growth. I don't mind a little bit of algae. That is natural to have in the pond, but it does take away from the look whenever it builds up. What are you yelling about, Dizzy? Even with the algae, the fish seem to be doing pretty well. I did find the bass and the bluegill after the big pond freeze, and the koi, all of them. However, about a week ago, I did find my white butterfly koi that was named Betty White dead on the bottom of the pond. So we had to pull her out and give her a nice burial in the pond garden. We do have a few tulips coming up on the back wall there, but they're not ready to bloom. I even bought a couple more and plugged them in over here on the right side of the waterfall. But we do have another variety of daffodils blooming. This one has a big trumpet style to them. Kind of like the sun and a bell put together right there. And I'm sure the bees love the shape of this one. Right next to it you can see some more penstemon that I plugged in. I have a little group here, right here, and it kind of scatters up through. Almost looks like something was eating that one. One more tulip over here that doesn't have a bloom yet, still early for those. But right next to it, you can see the lupin starting to put on its first leaves. I'm sure that's gonna be another star here on the pond again. You can see all the little fertilizer bombs I've been tossing in from the algae in the pond. We have a nice splash of color from the pink hyacinths here and some more little daffodils, but I think we have a third daffodil over here. We have a hyacinth just starting out down here, but look at this third variety of daffodil. This one is a very frilly one. This whole patch over here is gonna be this way. You can see them popping open. Ooh, and these ones have a nice fragrance. So I don't really want to mulch the pond bank yet until I get the pond cleaned out here for the spring. We do have some new growth here in the cold frame. We have some radishes coming up, some peas here on the side. This lettuce is getting bigger and bigger, and we have some smaller lettuces germinating over there. Unfortunately, we have that variegated vine coming up everywhere as well, so I'm gonna have to try and snuff that out. Oh, and the bunching onion started to germinate. I do have a mesh screen on the bottom of this so nothing can dig up underneath like a mole or a vole, but this does let the vine still poke through that screen and come up through the nice soil. It's all around here and it's pretty vigorous, so I have to knock it back pretty far every year in the beginning. What are you doing, pup? You found a ball bud, okay. You just hit your ball into the garden. All right, I'm coming. Hey. What are you doing down here, chicken? You're not supposed to be down here. I didn't get the fence up on my garden yet. I have fresh mulch down here in the garden, so I'm gonna have to get chicken wire around the gate and the entrance here, because everywhere I put fresh mulch down, the chickens want to come in and scratch. So it's starting to look clean down here in the vegetable garden. I still want to get a couple more bags of black mulch to go around the pollinator ring, and then I'm planning on bringing down some stone to make a nice definitive ring around that. I didn't get the compost on these two beds yet. This is the asparagus bed, but that's all ground cover weed that got transplanted with the asparagus roots. I did start to get the compost spread here on the pumpkin patch, so now every rain all the nutrients are leaching into the soil. And we have about 2 months before I need the pumpkin patch, so hopefully it's going to be ready. I'm going to be starting my giant pumpkin seed here in about 1 month from now. So subscribe down below. We're going to be trying for another giant pumpkin this year. I got some of the mulch spread around here on the walking path, and I even filled up some of the J bed here, but I didn't cover up all the garlic and onions coming up. I got these two beds filled up as well, but all this extra spent hay I need to get up onto the squash mound. The squash mound needs a lot of work this year. I need to get the blade out on the weed whacker and completely mow down all those weed stalks and then get it covered up with that composted hay, get all those nutrients to leach in, and then I can get this whole bottom spread out with all the mulch we have sitting here. What are you doing? You don't need to go out that gate. You stay here. If you've been following along, you know we're just starting to get our seeds started. So we still have some time before we're going to be planting outside. We have a lupin out here in the front just coming back beautifully. I don't want to do this garden yet because I know once I put the fresh mulch down, the chickens are going to get at it. And the cut flower garden going out on the outside of the fence. Even the ducks go in there from the pond. So that's why I've been doing the smaller gardens and inside the vegetable garden where it's mostly fenced. And even some of the gardens out front that I'm starting on. Because some of these chickens are free rangers. I do let the chickens out to free range in the afternoon, but it's not that time. These are actually fence jumpers. So I'm a little worried even whenever I get more fencing up there on the homestead, I'm still gonna have chickens jumping out and beating up my gardens. The side garden out here is probably one of the next gardens I wanna clean up and get mulched. We already have all the early blooms from the Lenten roses down here that I wanna get all the old leaves cut off of. I have pretty much all the same variety of hellebore. They've just been split up and moved around. And this one here is even big enough to be split now too. That has a nice color on it. Oh, and right above it, the pyrrhus is even starting to bloom. So even though I'm not out here planting anything, we still have a lot of perennials that are coming up starting to look good. So I want to get a lot of the old leaves and the debris cleaned up and then a nice layer of fresh mulch moved in. I did already start weeding out this newer corner garden that we have here. I just throw it all into the yard and then I'll mulch it up with the mower. But it looks so much better after it's all hand weeded. We did have one lupin over here come back. I think I planted 6, but we have 1 coming back, so that's a good ratio. 1 out of 6, I guess I'll take it. We have some nice growth coming off of this corkscrew willow. This is gonna have to get pruned multiple times a year, but it's gonna be fine because we can use the branches for crafts. That's pretty much all that's blooming here on the side garden. We do have a lot of hay I was dumping down here from Mumbles in the garage. This is all her bedding pack from the hospital wing. That's gonna all compost down and make good soil. We have the hydrangeas coming down this row that I'm gonna have to move into the yard so I can get an evergreen hedge on the outside. I did have hollies in there, but the deer ate all those back. And they ate my oak leaf hydrangea. I'm hoping this one has enough energy in its roots to push out new leaves this year. I might have to put a cage over this like I do my peonies. And out on the front garden here, we're starting to get some nice blooms underneath the empress tree. We have a whole hedge of daffodils popping up out here. They're still pretty young, and they do have some hyacinths in there as well, so we'll get a mix of color through the spring here. I do have a lot of trees that I need to move out here to clean this area up. There's a couple oak trees I really want to get out of here. And the farm stand out here is looking pretty good this spring. This is a sassafras tree volunteer that I need to dig up as well and move around the property. And a fourth kind of daffodil is blooming out here. This one is a bigger trumpet style, but it kind of has lighter outside petals and a darker center yellow. Gorgeous. Around the azalea and the yucca out here, I did get this area mulched because I do want that azalea to stand out whenever it starts to bloom. And we are going to be getting some frosty nights here late in the season as usual, so we might have to cover this up with a frost blanket to preserve the blooms. And soon we should have some hyacinths blooming along the border here. I don't know yet what to do with this ring. We probably will have a bunch of burning bush volunteer here again, which is going to be nice, but it doesn't fill out the whole ring because as you can see, it doesn't get all equal sun. So I'm really not quite sure what to change on this ring yet. But in the front garden here, we have some beautiful blue blooms coming up. These are the wild bell hyacinths, and they have a really nice blue color to them. I still need to get this all weeded out and get a fresh layer of marble in there. But I did start to get the black mulch around the porch here, but I didn't go along the hosta bed because I still want to dig some of these hostas up, move them around and spread them around the property. And I think I need to change this pathway area here to the propane tank. We have a short propane guy, so he can't actually step here and fill it up. He has to go around the side and get on his tippy toes. And if he's doing that, he's stepping on my Empress Wu hostas. So I'm going to need to change that up for him. All right, I need to break the tour up here. I need to go deliver my duck eggs, and then I'll be back and we'll pick the tour up again. Probably gonna have a different sunlight when I get back, but that's gonna have to do. Alright, I am back from delivering eggs. I also went grocery shopping, so we lost a lot of the light. But whenever I have to leave the house, I try and do everything I need to do. I also picked up some more black mulch to spread around later. But we're going to come up to the pergola garden real quick. Me and my dad built this pergola a few years ago for me to grow my gourds off of. I had a really bad year with gourds last year, so I'm hoping I can do better this year. The pergola itself is 8 feet high. Last year I added on this archway here. We could walk out to the new building. I have wooden pathways here that I cut. These are actually old fence boards that were around the whole property whenever my parents bought the property. It had wood plank fencing all around the property, and my dad took it down and saved all the wood, and I've used most of it now in different projects around the house. It looks better whenever I have it swept off, but the chickens came through here and scratched the mulch all around. It does go all the way around the pergola and out the other side. I have some Thuja green giants back here that are going to start filling in the space. I also have some hydrangeas over here and then a viburnum right here. A few perennials speckled in, but I really like to try and make this garden the jungle garden during the summer. So when the gourds fill in the whole pergola with their big leaves, it really gives it a jungle feel. So I try and put other jungly things out here like canna lilies and elephant ears. And I think even the yucca works to add different green texture in here. But around here, around the brick edging that I put in, we have a new daffodil. It's hard to keep clean edges whenever you have chickens free ranging though. This is a variety that we haven't come across yet. This is a white star pattern around a yellow center, but the yellow center is more frilly and cupped than the other ones that are more bell shaped and smooth. I'm sorry, I don't know the names of any of these daffodils. I've dug these up from friends' gardens that didn't want them anymore. I'm always on the lookout for some free plants. Hop pop. Up here on the pergola is actually one of the gourds I grew. I dried it out, sanded it down, and then I made it into a birdhouse. And that one did help a bird raise up a family last year. At the base of this left post, I have a cage here because we have a peony coming up and I don't want the chickens messing with it. This one unfortunately came with some ground cover because I dug it up from a friend's house. So I have to try and keep that ground cover in check. It's probably gonna end up taking over the whole pergola eventually. Much like all the vines I have on the front, if I don't keep them in check, they can take over the pergola real easy. This one's a red trumpet vine on the left, and I'm gonna add to the pergola here to get that to reach over the pathway so it actually hangs over and you can walk under. So we have 4 posts on front of the pergola here, and the left post is the red trumpet vine. Then we have the entrance in the center, and on the left side of the entrance is a purple clematis. I transplanted this one over here last year. It did really good on the patio where I had it before, but now it's gonna fill in the pergola here, and this is its 2nd year since it's been in the ground, so I think it's gonna have a good year. And on the right side of the pergola here, we have a honeysuckle, and this one needs to be kept in check too, or it could end up looking like Cousin It. But it does have some beautiful white and yellow blooms that have a fragrance that lasts all summer. And then over here on the archway, we have a silver lace vine. This is a very aggressive grower, one of the fastest growing vines in the world actually. I've given this one some more space than the other ones because it just can't be contained on one post, so I gave it a whole archway here over to the other post, and it actually falls down the right side there. And then I also gave it this whole wall of lattice here. Hopefully we'll have a nice solid green wall. And then in the summer it'll all fill in with white blooms. Echo puppy, you're always such a good boy. Now, as you can see, the silver lace vine is reaching over onto the top of the pergola, which I really don't like. I need to prune that back before it starts growing this year. I like to try and keep the whole top for the gourds, because whenever that fills in with the gourds, it looks really good with all the big leaves. It kind of gives it a full shade ceiling. And as you can see, we have some hardware in here. I do want to hang some hammocks. I'm going to hang a single person hammock right here on this end, and then we have to reinforce this bench. It's only hanging from the cattle panel. I need to put some metal bars up there for it to hang from, and then I can repaint and use that bench. And then this over here, we have a wrought iron table set I was able to find. It doesn't have the tabletop or the seat covers or the seat backs, but I need to sand this down, get this repainted, and then I can do something with this. But for now, it's just gonna sit here like a garden ornament, and I think it looks pretty good with the bird bath in the middle. What happened to my Echo puppy? Why are you laying dead in the middle of the road, puppy? What are you doing? Am I taking too long on the garden tour, bud? Yeah, you just wanna play, huh? You silly puppy. We only have a couple more gardens to do, bud. Yeah. We're gonna finish up the tour over here by the chickens. Coming off the driveway, we have the poplar bed. I made this into a garden bed up around the poplar because it had really exposed roots that I wasn't able to mow around anymore. So I just created a garden bed around it and raised up the soil level. I need to re-edge this out because the chickens brought all the soil down into the edge work here. We have another little bird bath out here, and this is a swath of Shasta daisies coming around the curve. And then we have an orange rocket barberry and another yucca on the corner. I have a handful of perennials that I repeat around the property, and the yucca is one of them. And that really helps to keep a uniformity to the gardens during the growing season. I didn't get to pruning back my nectarine tree this year in the food forest, so this thing's gonna have a huge bloom this year. It's gonna be a beautiful pink bloom. The bees are really gonna love it early in the season, but I'm gonna have to prune it back because if it does end up getting fruit, it's gonna have way too much fruit. Plus, it's getting a little bit too tall to even pick from. The food forest is really in dismay right now. I do have 2 ewes right here. I'm trying to grow up, and I'll probably make that into a topiary. That's the eventual plan on those, but that's the long game. I use the food forest as overflow for the vegetable garden, but I also have a lot of different perennial plants in here, like berries to grow. And this is where I put my fruit trees, but the deer know it. So the deer destroyed my peach tree again. This is my other bonfire peach that I had, and it looks like it's still alive, but it's struggling. So I need to prune that back. There's a lot of work I need to do here in the food forest, and I've pretty much just left it go because the chickens come in here and destroy everything. So the food forest is probably going to be one of the last gardens I come into and straighten up. I have all the berry bushes coming around the outside here. We have black raspberries, we have raspberries, we have red raspberries, we have blackberries. There's Josta berries back there. I have a fall gold raspberry popping up. The indigo hascap honeyberry, that's one of my favorites, and that's actually blooming right now. We'll go in there. This one's blooming right now. It has a real pale yellow flower. I don't know if anything's coming in to pollinate it. We have been getting some warm days, so hopefully something's coming in here. Look at that tiny little bird's nest in there from last year. This indigo hascap, or some people call it a honeyberry, produces a berry very similar to a blueberry, but I think it has a little bit more flavor. I do need to get more of those so they pollinate better though. I had a blueberry patch right here. I had 5 of them, and I think only 2 of them are alive. This one looks alive. But I think I got the wrong variety with these. They're staying really small, so I'm thinking they're low bush variety instead of high bush. I don't know a terrible amount about berries, but I did do a little bit of research before picking these. But I really just wanted to throw some berries in here to get started because it takes a while for them to mature and actually start producing fruit. But this is really coming up on the 3rd or 4th year, so we should be getting some fruit out of here. And unfortunately, my second pomegranate tree that I plugged in, that one died. It was a hardy Russian pomegranate, and we are in zone 6A here, which that was supposed to be hardy to zone 5, but I keep losing them. And right beside Puppy, we have another cage, which means we have a peony coming up. And this peony I dug out of my pap's house, so I don't want the chickens messing with this one. It was really small last year, but I'm hoping it can get bigger and I can spread that one around the property. And coming up the side after those, we have 2 more berry bushes here. This one's doing a little bit better and actually putting on some growth already. And one of these is a goji berry. And I really can't think of what the other one is right now. Huh, Pop? But luckily, we can look back in the videos if we want to find out. Or we could just wait till it produces fruit. Now these 2 over here are side by side, and they're next to another pathway that I don't really have defined, but that pot is on one side and then these berries are on the other. And these are currants. These are actually really good. They make really good jams and jellies as well. And if you're over in the UK, you've probably had currants before, but it's one of those berries that you have to grow as a homesteader to enjoy because they don't ship very well, so they're not sold commercially. Pop. Now this little bed here was my strawberry bed. The chickens did get in here and mess it up, but that's not really the problem. It's actually getting too much shade from this massive maple tree right here. I just put it too far underneath the canopy. So that actually needs moved, or I need to pull all the strawberries out and put something else in that bed. Now over here we have a bunch of volunteer privets that I need to dig out. I have a couple privets over there on that line that keep throwing seeds into the mulch. So I need to dig those out. Down here I think we have some valerian coming up. That's what that looks like. Valerian is a perennial root. It's also a medicinal plant. I try and add medicinal plants into the food forest as well so they can just get started. And it looks like we're getting some good spread here from the valerian. And right beside that we have some volunteer raspberries that I don't want on this side of the food forest. I want all the berries on that side. I hope I'm seeing this right as valerian, because we have a bunch of this coming up. There's even a dark purple and the green, so I hope I'm remembering right. And then along this edge we're starting a hedge of azaleas, and that's to bring in some early flowers so the pollinators can be drawn into this area. But as you can see, I really need to get the chickens out of here before I can make it look nice. Oh, Sammy, you gotta stay out of my garden. All right, now we'll come over here to the island garden to finish up. We have the forsythia blooming just gorgeously right now. You can see this blooming all over the area right now. It's actually along a lot of roadsides. Down below that, we have a swath of daffodils right at the base of the ash tree. This ash tree was doing pretty bad, but we cut it back and it's actually been doing pretty good these last few years. I almost thought about replacing it with a magnolia tree, but we're gonna keep it for a while. And now we have a cage down here. It's not because of the peony. There's actually a peony coming up right there. This actually has some hyacinths under it, and I didn't want these to get eaten by the rabbit, so I put a cage on it. I actually came out the other night around midnight and a rabbit ran right across in front of me. So they're around and they're looking for food. Huh, Pop, you need to do some work. Now, unfortunately, underneath the burning bush here, we did lose some of the heuchera. I still have some small red ones right there, right past the hellebore, but it looks like the chickens dug up all my dark purple heuchera. Or wait, I actually moved those. I actually moved those over here underneath the red maple tree. Here it is. Here's a dark purple one, and there's the other one, and the third up here. Thanks, Sammy. All right, well, that's good to see. Hopefully these red ones start growing here soon. The hellebore is blooming, and I didn't get the dead foliage off of it yet because, like I said, I didn't come out here into the island garden to do any work because the chickens are still scratching it all up here. And look at these daffodils. This might be another variety. If I can get it to focus, you can see the frill in there inside the bell shape. Inside the bell there, it's actually filled up with a bunch of frill. So that's pretty neat. So with all the daffodils and the hellebores blooming, it would look nice out here if I got it freshly mulched. But I think those chickens would love some fresh mulch too. I even put my bird bath down on ground level so the chickens could get a drink there. Where are you coming from, Rufio? Did you just come out of my garden? I gotta get that closed off. And looking on the back side of the bird bath here, we have 3 different heucheras. This one looks to be a nice lavender purple. Oh, a bird just flew in there. Yeah, what are you? What are you? Looks like we have a house finch nesting inside the golden globe arborvitae. The other heuchera in here has a bee flying around it. Which one do you like, buddy? The white one or the purple one? This one has both in it. Oh, she's flying to both white and purple. And the last one over here is white with pink edges, so we do have 3 different kinds here. What's this one? This one looks the same as the front, but this one actually has some lime green in the center. That's neat. I don't think the other ones had that touch. They all have that? Oh no, that one doesn't. Huh, it was just the one. This one has some white tips in there, but this one looked neat. And then we do have some hyacinths blooming out here as well. These ones aren't doing that well. I don't think they're getting a lot of sun in here, and they're not in the best soil either. But they've only been in a couple years, so hopefully over time they'll start getting better and better. Now, Pop. You're so cute. It would look better with fresh mulch, but it does look good with the splash of color it has. But I'm sad to report that we did lose the blood good Japanese maple. The deer ate it right down to a nub, and I don't think it's coming back. And there really isn't much more to talk about heading out the island on the peninsula here. And all the way out the green yard here where the ducks are is what I refer to as the south garden. I'm starting to fill it in with some evergreens and maple trees, but there's a lot to do out there as we expand that field pond and get a lot more planting in. But I think we made it pretty much all the way around the gardens today. We're still very early in the season, so there's a lot that's going to change, and I'm going to try and bring you along at least once a month, maybe even more than that. And I'm also going to be adding all the progress videos of working in the garden here. So if you want to keep following along with everything here at Whitt Acres, make sure to subscribe down below, hit that like button before you leave, and you can see me me and Echo on the next one. Thanks for watching.